This friend of mine, monk, he was a very happy monk. And then one day he was given an iPod. And then he became a very happy monk. Weird, I know. And then his iPod broke. And then he became a sad monk. Okay, everybody, let's cry. So what do we learn from this? Don't lose your iPod.
Yes, that's true.
Make sure when you get one, get insurance with it. These are all life wisdom lessons to learn. Well, it is an interesting situation. And one of the things we could learn from this lesson is, from this incident, is that as our expectations increase, so also does our endeavor have to increase for the same amount of satisfaction, for the same amount of happiness. And so what is the element? It is the expectation. So more your expectations increase, more you have to have in order to hit the same level of satisfaction or happiness, right? I remember the times when the phones were corded and no one walked around with one. And we never thought we needed any phones, but then phones became mobile, and now we absolutely have to have one. If you don't have one, you become miserable. So similarly, this friend of mine, he was a very happy, satisfied monk. And then he got his iPod, and he thought it was wonderful, because on the iPod, not only that you can load a lot of transcendental spiritual audio, sounds, and so on, but you can also load books. Monks tend to travel, and when you travel, it's difficult to travel with a load of books. They're kind of heavy. So you can just put them all on your iPod. There are many apps you can read your books. So in many ways, he thought it was just wonderful. I have it all on my little iPod. And then when the iPod broke, he experienced some dissatisfaction. He's a very advanced soul. He snapped right back to his original. He wasn't lost. But nevertheless, there's this problem of increase of expectation, and therefore increase of need to endeavor for the same amount of satisfaction. Now, the interesting thing is that we're all born into, or at least are living in, a society where certain level of expectation is defined. So, for example, if you were born in Bangladesh, I don't know if anyone knows, that was some years ago, according to some polls, considered the most poor country in the world. So if you're born in Bangladesh, you don't expect much from life. If you're born in Southern California, well, then you expect a beautiful body, right? You expect a convertible, maybe. A place by the beach, not too far. Gotta be a cool fella. And the list goes on. And the interesting thing is that the polls showed that the fellows in Bangladesh were way more happier than average Americans. For a very simple reason, they did not expect a lot from life. They were just not expecting much, and because they were not expecting much, therefore they're satisfied with very little. And this is an interesting thing, that every society has a certain norm, and we adopt these norms. We adopt these norms and therefore live accordingly. And I would be bold enough to say that in modern society, at least in Southern California, and probably most of the world, we have overinflated the necessary standards for living. And consequently, we have ended up with a society where everyone competes all the time. I don't know about you, but darn, I am tired of competing.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, so why not just chill, right? Can just everyone be cool, right? Just one second. Why not just relax? But it is very difficult because it has become a social norm that you look certain way, that you have in possession certain material goods and so on. And therefore, one of the very important spiritual instructions we find, for example, in many traditions, but in this particular case in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Yadricha labha santushta dvandvatita vimatsara sama siddha siddhaucha kritvapi na nibadyate. It describes a person who's happy and a person who does not get bound up. And who is that person? That's a person who is happy with whatever comes easy. If it doesn't come easy, it's not worth my time. If it's not natural, well, let it go. And Krishna says that this kind of person becomes happy and becomes unbound. In other words, the process of bondage is when these expectations get inflated, and therefore we endeavor for these expectations, and before we know it, we get thoroughly entangled. And the result is that not only that we become entangled, but we also become very distracted. Now, when we find ourselves distracted, then we cannot focus on that which is really important in life. And thus we lose our time elsewhere, maybe perusing items in the shopping mall or something like that. And what is the conclusion? This is a little section that I'm covering in the Bhagavad Gita. And then Krishna teaches that Brahmarpana, Brahmahavir, Brahmagna, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaivatena Gantavya, Brahma Karma Samadhina. Anyone here knows what Samadhi is? Samadhi is the ultimate level of yoga. That is the goal of yoga, to achieve Samadhi. It's a spiritual absorption in the self as a spiritual entity, and also God for those who are theists. And Krishna says that unless you're living like this, lowering your expectations and just endeavoring for things which don't require much endeavor, I'm speaking about material things, then you can do Brahmagna, Brahmahavir, Brahmanahutam. Then you can endeavor for Brahman. Brahman is a general term, means that which is spiritual. Then you can travel the spiritual path. Otherwise, the spiritual path becomes very difficult. Your attention continues to get pulled into the external world, and you judge the world and people and situations by external values. How does it look? How does it feel? How does it taste? And so on. And of course, I'd say that modern civilization, to a large extent, shows exactly how not to do the rat race, right? It's a very uncomfortable situation. Unlike I travel to some villages in third world countries, and people don't have concept of poverty, even though from our point of view we'd probably call them underdeveloped. Or but from their point of view, we are underdeveloped. We are overdeveloped in one department and underdeveloped in the other departments. We were once in a village. I'll just end with this. We were in a village, and people never met us before, ever. And they brought us to their little hut and made us sit down and wouldn't let us leave until they cooked lunch for us. Because here we came to their village like that. And then I left, and this friend of mine, Alex Shaker, he stayed because they asked him to stay. This was his first visit to India. So it blew his mind. Because it's a third world country. And they asked him to stay, and he said, okay, I'll stay. He stayed for 2 weeks in their home.
Oh my gosh.
sleeping with them, eating with them. They even asked him, if you want, you could marry in our village.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! They must really like him.
It's a very different lifestyle to the one we're used to. That's why, again, huge expectations in terms of living standards, and therefore very little expectations in terms of spiritual development, interpersonal relationships, and so on. Okay, if anyone has any questions or comments, would like to throw in, add anything to what has been said on the topic, this is your time to speak. Yes.
Can you have, good values and still have materialistic things? Like, I mean, it's one thing to like really believe in happiness and all this stuff, but you can't just become like, you still need a job, and you still need, of course.
Yeah, even, you could say that I have taken to an extreme lifestyle, that of a monk, and certainly for modern society that's an extreme. And if you notice, my shirts are all falling apart, they got holes, but I'm waiting for them to like really fall apart. And I don't care. Oh, dude, you got a hole in your shirt. So, but I still do take care of, I eat healthy, I regularly sleep. If it's cold outside, I dress myself. So that's but if you notice, if you pay attention to the quotation I pulled from Krishna, it doesn't say that one should not endeavor for material things. As a matter of fact, material things are necessary to maintain the material body, because we do have a material body. But Krishna says that if you over-endeavor, if you endeavor more than... it gives a very generic term, because there's no hard line. It's really difficult to draw a straight line there. But it gives a general clue. Like if you endeavor for something which does not come easy, you're over-endeavoring. And of course, easy is a very subjective term. There's really room to push it one way or the other. And this is where the sincerity of a spiritual practitioner comes in. But we probably all have within our experience that when we begin to over-endeavor for material things, we become entangled. We become bound up, and we become definitely distracted. I mean, I remember, I grew up in Europe, so that's where I completed my secular education. And I remember when I went to high school, that was by far the worst experience ever. Everyone was so darn competitive. Like, there were unspoken, undefined by any documentation standards of how you should look, how you should wear your backpack, how you should wear your pants for guys, how you should relate to girls. It's like, it was so competitive, What's up, I mean, what if I was born with a long nose, What does that make me? How's my nose?
My nose is long.
It's long. You got a big nose.
I have a huge
Welcome
nose.
to the club. We'll start a movement. Long nose rides. But it's ridiculous, and it really goes. It stretches everywhere within materialistic society. Why would one be defined by one's own physical body, or the clothes that's been put on their physical body? I mean, how does that make person different? But we become so superficial. And so it's interesting that these instructions work on two platforms, individually and collectively. And the tendency is to primarily concern ourselves with personal things. But really, if we're liberal-minded people, we will concern ourselves with collective situations, and therefore endeavor to make our contribution to the society. Everyone has a power to make a change and to create a change in the world. that good?
Yes.